Hey guys, and welcome back to How to Code Basic. Today I'm going to be giving you guys an intro to CSS. So to start off, if you guys have not already watched my intro to HTML video, please do so. I'll have the links in the description below. So let's get started. First off, I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder under my YouTube channel directory on my FTP site. And I'm gonna go ahead and name it CSS because that is the main topic of this video. Now inside of this CSS, I'm gonna go ahead and add an HTML page or HTML file, and it's gonna be index.html. So if you guys, for those of you who have already seen my previous videos on HTML, you guys should already know what H1 and P and all those cool other elements do. So, and for those of you who have not seen my videos, please pause this video right now and watch my intro to HTML, because that will help you guys a lot in this video. And if you guys already know what HTML is, well then that's good for you. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. So I'm gonna go ahead and just write that down in an HTML page really quickly. There it is. So we have CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, right? So now if you guys have already seen my intro to HTML, I'm pretty sure I also gave you guys a little sneak peek into this video, like some information such as centering text and what defaults are in HTML. And for those of you who didn't, then I'm not gonna ask you guys to watch the video anymore, because if you've come this far without watching the video, I'm pretty sure you're never gonna watch that video. So I'll just go ahead and say it straight. In HTML, some defaults are text or everything is always aligned to the left side of the screen, and text is always black. So now I'm gonna go ahead and explain what CSS means. So CSS stands for right here, Cascading Style Sheets, and what that means is it's a style sheet. So what the style sheets do, they go ahead and style certain things. So I'm pretty sure there are style sheets for Excel pages where you can make your graph prettier by using a style sheet, and you can make that style sheet using some code. I don't know what language it is, but I'm pretty sure that's available in Microsoft Excel, and I'm pretty sure it's under macros. But anyway, in HTML we use the language CSS to style our HTML pages, and this is not just for HTML. CSS can work with I'm pretty sure it can work with ASP.NET and ASPX, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys CSS with HTML. So in HTML, there are two ways to put in CSS code. The first way is to have the CSS code written inside of the HTML file. To do that, I'm going to go inside of these two head tags right here, enter down one, and then go ahead and type in the tag style, which I've already shown you guys in the intro to HTML video. Inside of these style tags, you can write your HTML freely, however you like. So I'm going to go ahead and just write Textalign Center. That way you guys will know that it actually works. Perfect. So my text is centered using CSS, and the way I did it, I used style tags. The second way to do it is if I go ahead back into my CSS folder, add in Visual Studios, they'll have the style sheet button here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and rename this index.css. So this, actually, maybe I'll just rename it as main. Okay, so I just created a CSS file with the name of main. So now I'm gonna go ahead and make the text color blue. So just write color equals blue. And I'll go ahead and explain all this code later, but for now I'll just show you guys how the linking process works. So right now the only CSS code that we have is inside of these two style tags, right? And I told you guys I'd show you the second way, and the second way of linking CSS to HTML is to create a separate CSS file with all of your CSS code. So in this case, my CSS styling is right here, and then you can go ahead and save that. And again, in the head of your HTML file that you want the CSS with, you go ahead and create a link tag. Now, and then you're gonna do the href, just like when you make normal links in using the a tags, and then it's going to say link href main.css because that's what I named my CSS file. But here is where your CSS file name would go. Then after that, you're going to press space, type in rel, and then you're gonna go ahead and type in style sheet, because CSS stands for style sheet, or the SS in CSS stands for style sheets. Then you're going to close the tag. Since it's one tag, just like doctype HTML, we're going to go ahead and use the normal slash, the front slash. So then if you go ahead and save, you will see both types of CSS code working now. So I have the Textalign Center, which is in between my style tags right here, that's working. And I also have the code that makes the text color blue in a separate CSS file linked here. So to make it simpler, I'm going to go ahead and use a different page for my CSS code. But normally you'll see in my videos I'll be using the two style tags, because that just keeps it less crowded. When I have a bunch of files open, it tends to get hard to work. But since I only have two open right now, I'll go ahead and use this. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put in some materials here. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and create a paragraph element. If I refresh, it should be Textalign left again. I'm gonna go ahead and write in CSS is used in web development. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in a button that's not going to do anything, but it's going to say click me. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in an input type text, which for those of you who don't know what it does, it's pretty much a text box. And it's going to, the text inside of it is going to say, so in order to write that little text, so if I go ahead and save right now and refresh, I should have a button to the left and a text, yep. So in order to put text in here, you can do two ways. You can do value, and what that'll do is you can make a new attribute value, and what that will do is it will actually write text inside of the text box. But I'm going to go ahead and use the placeholder attribute. And what that does is, that goes ahead and does this cool thing. So right now it says hi. If I click on the text box and start typing, it's going to go ahead and get rid of that hi. So that's pretty much what we call a placeholder. So I'm going to say type here. Save. Okay, so now I have this. Now I want to go ahead and actually I'm going to go ahead and put in this button right after this, and I'm actually okay, the way I'm going to show you guys CSS is I'm going to make a username and password form. So the placeholder, this will say password, and this one's placeholder will say username. Great. Go ahead and save. Username and password. Okay, great. 1, 2, 3, and ellipses. So now we have all of our HTML done. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm gonna go ahead and put this header right in the center of the page. Actually, I'm gonna put this header. Yeah, I'll put the header in the center of the page, and I'm gonna put this text right here to the right of the page. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put this username input box right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put in the password input box right underneath it, and then I'm going to have a button underneath both of those. And the way I'm going to do that is CSS. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is your CSS page, go ahead and erase all of the code that's written inside of it, or you could go ahead and keep the UTF-8 and all that other fun stuff with the comments. So first off, I'm going to put this in the center. So in CSS, what we need to do is we need to access this element right here, and then we need to tell the CSS to put it in the middle. So first we need to access it. To do that is very simple. Since the tag is an H1, or since the element is an H1 element, and since we are accessing element, we are simply going to type H1. Then we're going to put a space, and then 2 curly brackets, and then if you have an editor, then you can just enter down once. If you don't have an IDE, then, or you're using Notepad or something, then you can enter down twice and then press tab in this middle one right here, or space it twice. So then we want to put this text right here in the center, because right now it looks like this. We want this in the center. To do that, we're going to use the command Textalign. So you write it as text dash align, and then you put a colon, space, and then since I'm using an IDE, it already gives me some places where I can go ahead and put it. So I can go ahead and align it to the center, which is what I want to do. I can put it at the end. I can go ahead and justify it. I can go ahead and put it to the left, or the right, or the start. I want to put it in the center, so I'm going to type in center and then put a semicolon at the end of that line of code. Now I'm going to save it and refresh, and now I have this text is in the center of the page. Now I said development. So first I'm going to go ahead and fix this typo. Second, I'm going to go ahead and put this to the right using the same development, using the same method. So this is a P element, and to get that P element, I'm going to do the same exact method. I'm going to go ahead and type in P, space, 2 curly brackets, and then in between these 2 curly brackets, oh, this is the second way that you can go ahead and write CSS code. You can just write it in between these 2 curly brackets. So I want to put that text to the right, so I'm going to use the same text align right, and then end it with the semicolon. I'm going to go ahead and save and refresh, and it should also work, how it puts it all the way to the right. But to make it legible, I'm going to go ahead and enter down. That way you can actually read it. So how CSS works is, first it goes ahead and accesses the element from the HTML page using this line of code right here. Since you linked the file to the HTML file, you're pretty much giving permission for the CSS file to go ahead and change how everything looks inside of the file. So I first accessed the H1 element, and now that doesn't mean just the first H1 element. That means all of the H1 elements found on this HTML page here, or any other HTML page where you use the link, and then you use, or where you link it. So if I were to go ahead and put in another H1 element down here, it would automatically center it, because what the CSS does, if you go ahead and just call out, see how it automatically centers it? If I just did this, like right here, where I just called out the H1, then what it does is it looks inside the document for all of the H1 elements, and then it applies this code right here, which centers it. And then same with the P, since it's just an element and it's just there by itself, it's going to find all P elements. So if I go ahead and make this P element that says hi, or H1 apparently, and I go ahead and save, refresh, it should also be text-align right, because the CSS looks through the document for all of the P elements. Since we don't want that, or this is how you go ahead and avoid that. This is where things also get a bit complicated. We have, okay, so there are two ways. No, there are actually a couple of ways that you can access elements or not just elements, where you can access items inside of an HTML page through CSS or JavaScript. Yeah. So I'll show you guys the JavaScript one in a later video. That's a lot later. That's not something you guys need to know right now. But for CSS, I'll go ahead and show you guys anyway. So I just showed you guys the first way, which is just using the H1 or just using the P, the tag name. But what that does is it goes ahead and looks for all of the tags that correspond with the P, and then it goes ahead and puts that to the right. Now let's say I want this text H1 in the center of the page, or let's say I want the text H1 to the left of the page. If I wanted to do that, I could easily do this by changing a little code right here. In the HTML, I'm going to go ahead and put in a space, and then there's going to be a new attribute called, so there's two of these. There's ID, like this, just the letters ID, and then you put an equal sign and then the quotation marks. Then you have another way of doing it, which is class, which is the same equal sign and quotation marks. So the way each one works is you can have as many IDs and as many classes as you want. In class, you can use the same name over and over and over again, but in ID, you can only use one name once. So if I go ahead and name this ID Hello World, like that, it doesn't matter however you write it, it just can't have any spaces or any fishy characters like hashtags or underscore. No, I think it can actually have underscores. And then, so we have our ID Hello World. I can't use this ID on another element because IDs only correspond to one element, as right here. Oh. Let's see if it works. Nope. Class, on the other hand, you can have many classes. So class is a little bit trickier because it has let's see, it has more names and you can use multiple classes at once, whereas ID is a little more simpler because you can only have one name and an ID, and actually every name has to be unique in an ID. But that's, so essentially if you're going to be an expert web developer, you need to know how both of them work and how to have them both work together. So with classes, you can have multiple classes. So I can go ahead and use a class hello, and then I could use a separate class that's called world. And we space these out by just putting a space. So now if I go ahead and save that, what this code represents right here is you created a new ID, and the ID's name is hello world with no spaces and a capital W, and you created two new classes. One of them is hello and the other one is world. And so if we go ahead and delete all of our code right here, go ahead, save and refresh, all that fun stuff. Everything goes back to the left, and the way I want it is I want this P element right here that says CSS used in web development. I want that to the right. So now I have 3 ways, or actually I have a lot more than 3 ways where I can access this P element. I can go ahead and access it using hello world. I can go ahead and access it using the word hello, or access it using the class word or world. I can also access it again with the P element, but then it would go ahead and also put this one to the right. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the ID. So remember how we access the P element using just the P, or writing just P? When you access IDs, you have to do a hashtag, and then you have to type the ID name, no spaces. So the ID was hello world. Then you press space, the 2 curly brackets, and then you go ahead and type in all of your code right here. So if I go ahead and do Textalign right, which is all the way down here, and then go ahead and save, it's going to move just this highlighted text right here to the right of the screen. It's going to keep this one in place because this one doesn't have an ID of hello world. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this right here and just use the ID for now. So now in the input, the first text box, I'm going to go ahead and assign this an ID as well. And since I'm only going to be using one of them, I'm going to assign it an ID as username. And then the input right here, I'm going to go ahead and assign its ID as password. So what I did right now, I just created 2 new IDs, one of them being password and the other being username. So if I go ahead and save and refresh, it's not going to do anything, so I don't need to go ahead and save and refresh. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how ID and class works together. So since both of these are text boxes, in the class I'm just going to write text box. So what I did right now is I created a new class called text box, and now both of these inputs right here have the class of text box. And now this ID and class, they work with essentially everything except for, they don't actually, they work with everything, I think. Yeah, there's maybe 1 or 2 exceptions that they don't work with, but with everything else they work. So I'm just going to go ahead and put an HTML comment really quickly. That's going to be here. This should say submit, and this should say form. Now those 2 lines of code don't do anything because those are just comments, so the browser doesn't read them. That's only for our eyes, us humans. So now that we have input ID, username, and class text box, time to show you guys what those do. So first, this is how you access an ID in CSS. To access a class, we use the period and then the class name. So in our case, or in my case, the class name was text box. So then you go ahead and do the same curly brackets, and then we want them like this: Textalign Center. Great. So what that should do, perfect, it centers the text inside. Hi, how are you? And same thing here. So now since this is a password input instead of a input type text, what it does is most browsers will go ahead and replace it with some sort of hidden sign. Clearly here Google Chrome uses little dots. I've seen browsers use asterisks before, and this is what an asterisk is. Oh right, you can't see that because it's the password. This is what an asterisk is right here. So right now we have using the Textalign Center with these since both of these inputs right here have a class of text box, when I went ahead and called the text box and then told the called the class text box and told the CSS to do a Textalign Center, it went ahead and grabbed everything in this page that has a class of text box and it centered its text. So now the way I'm going to go ahead and get these in the center right here is if I put a div around them. Now I explained in an earlier video what a div was, so I'm not gonna spend too much time explaining it here. But what it essentially is it's a divider. That's it. That's all I'm gonna say about a div. Divs can also have IDs. In this case, I'm gonna make its ID form. They can also have classes too, because divs go to school. Okay, so right now we just added a div, nothing happened. This is where everything is about to change, where we go ahead and type in hashtag form, because our IDs is form. And then we can go ahead and write Textalign Center, semicolon, colon, space, fun stuff. So now we have our div now we have our thing in the center. So now what I'm going to do is I wanted this on top, I wanted this underneath this text box, and I wanted this button underneath them all. So the way you can do this, actually, when I was early in programming, learning stuff still, I didn't know that there was a command in HTML for line breaks. So what I did was I went ahead and typed in P, and then I did PID test, or PID high, and then I went ahead and typed in some text here. So what that does is it will go ahead and write some text right here. So see how it puts some space in between? Then what I do is I come back here in the CSS, I would do hashtag high, and then this is the next thing I'm going to show you guys in CSS, and it's called opacity. What that does is you have opacity 0 through 1. You can have any number, but it has to be between 0 and 1. 0 means invisible and 1 means totally visible. So in between would mean like kind of transparent but not exactly. What I would do is I would set the opacity to 0. That way when you go ahead and refresh, you wouldn't be able to see the text high, but it'd still be there and it'd work as kind of like a line break. But that's not what I'm going to do, because that takes too much code and too much time, and it's not the correct practice. The correct thing to do would be to make a tag called BR, which pretty much means break, and then you have everything right here to go ahead and make pretty. Perfect. So what that does is it also creates a line break, but it's not as big because there's no text. If you go ahead and put in another line break underneath that, since break is, or BR, it's just like the doc type HTML, it's one tag, so you have to close it using the slash. So now if I go ahead and save and refresh, I'm left with some space right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same right after password. So now that I've added line breaks, now I have this. I have a username, how to code basic, and password. I'm just gonna copy it and paste. Perfect. So now I have a username and a password, and the button is now centered as well. So now I wanted this text right here in the center. Since I want all H1s in the center, I'm going to go ahead and just access H1. Now it doesn't matter in which way you put any of these, unless, no, it does not matter. But what does matter is the way that where you put the commands inside. So if I go ahead and write Textalign right after I write center, which one do you guys think? Which one do you guys think will be executed? You guys can go ahead and write this in the comments below. But which one you guys think will be executed? But I'm about to show you right now. So let's see. So what happens in CSS is if you write two of the same commands, it will go ahead and call the one that is the last one written. So it will pretend that this Textalign Center doesn't exist, since there's a one right underneath it. Now if I go ahead and make this left, it will go ahead and get rid of the Textalign Center and move everything to the left. But that's not what I want. Perfect. Now I want all my H1s also in the center, so I'll just do Textalign Center. And then, let's see, I can go ahead and get rid of this paragraph element, or I'm gonna go ahead and change this to this page was made using HTML/CSS. Perfect. So now if we refresh, we have our text in the center. We have this towards the left, and because that's the default in HTML, and we have this towards the right because we set it ourselves. And as you can see, all of the text here is black, including the text on the button. The borders of all of these text boxes, along with the placeholder colors and the button color, is all gray. Well, that's all about to change. So first I'm gonna go ahead and change the color of the header right here, cascading style sheets. To do this, I'm gonna go ahead and also, I don't want to create a new ID or element, so I'm gonna change it along with this. Using the color command, you can go ahead and choose whatever color it is that you would like to have the text colored. In Visual Studios, they give you all of these options here. I'm gonna go with sky blue because that looks okay. But in truth, I'm not too familiar, or I don't feel too comfortable using these texts or using the words, because some browsers don't support it, such as Mozilla Firefox and Safari on the iOS devices. Some of those browsers don't support certain types of colors and stuff, so I like to use the method RGB. Now you may have heard of this before, but what RGB stands for, it stands for red, green, and blue. So what that does is it goes ahead and accounts for the amount of red, green, and blue that you have. So inside of these parentheses goes 3 numbers. I like to look at this color. So in this case, in this color, I have 0 red, I have 148 greens, and 255 blues. Now the maximum amount of number you can have here is 255, right there. So then, of course, in CSS we end everything with a semicolon. We will go ahead and save and refresh, and then we have the color that I like. I love using RGB because I know that every single browser supports it due to how old school it is. Just like how every single browser supports HTML. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and change the color of this text to black. No, it's black already. If I change it to white, it will go invisible because the background's white. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how to change the background color. To do that, we're gonna go ahead and access pretty much our favorite tag ever, which is the body tag. And remember how in order to access a tag in CSS, you just type the tag's name. Now, since CSS is so simple, in order to change the background color, we are literally going to use background-color, and then we're going to use a colon, which is like equivalent to an equal sign, and then you have all these colors that you can choose from. Since Google Chrome supports these words, I'm gonna go ahead and use light sea green. I did not know that existed until just now. And then if I go ahead and refresh, I just changed the background color. That's actually a pretty good background color, but only for plain pages. So now you can barely read this, but I'm okay with that. So now we can go ahead and change the color of this text to white, and the color of that text is #hello world, right? So we're gonna go ahead and access it and then change the color to white. And if you don't want to use words or text in the colors, another way you can do this is using color RGB, and 0,0,0 will not do your job, because scientifically, when there is an absence of any color, you have an endless void, which is black. Now, black is a color that we humans named it, but really it's no color because it's an absence of all colors. So since we have an absence of all colors here, this will make black. So the exact opposite of black is white. That means the exact opposite of the absence of all colors is the present of all colors. That really sounded better in my head. So we're gonna go ahead and use 255, 255, 255, which will also make white text. But to keep it simple, I'm just going to use this. Perfect. So now that I have white text here, I guess I can make this white. So to do that, I'm just gonna go ahead and cut and paste, since that's also a P element and I want all the P elements to be white. If I go ahead and refresh, both of the P elements will be white. So now I told you guys that I would go ahead and fix these, and that I will do right after I do this. Go ahead and change the text line to left, because that looks a lot better. Wouldn't it look better if the text box you typed from here rather than typing from the center? Well, if we refresh after writing text line left, it's going to go ahead and do that. So next, what I'm going to do is make these text boxes prettier by editing the .textbox class. So first, I don't like the white background color. Do you? I don't think you do. So to do that, we can go ahead and change that to background color, and then we can go ahead and make our own background color. I'm gonna go ahead and make it, what was it? Light sea green? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just write it out, light sea green. So what that does is it virtually makes our text boxes almost impossible to see. Except we still have these ugly borders, and I really need to get rid of those borders. So to do that, we can easily just do this. We go ahead and type in border, which is your next command that you should learn, and then none. That literally means no borders. So if we refresh, we have pretty much invisible text boxes. The only way we can see them is because of the text that we have inside of them. So I don't like the way that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and change the border color. So border dash color, it's kind of like the background color, except for you replace the word background with the word border. And I'm gonna make the color RGB. I really like this color. I'm gonna see if I can find a darker version of it. There. Now if I go ahead and save and refresh. Right, we have no borders because I got rid of the border using border none. We can also go ahead and replace this none with 3 pixel solid. Like I said earlier in my intro to HTML video, when changing anything, we are in code, or at least in web development, we use pixels. And because the fact that we use pixels, you are going to have to get used to fonts and stuff like that because of pixels. And now, if I look at it, I really don't like the look of it because they look kind of sharp to me. So what I'm going to do is we're going to write border dash radius, and then go ahead and put a colon, and then choose a certain amount of pixels. If I go with 30 px, which px stands for pixels if you guys didn't know that, what it's going to do is it's going to make my text box really round. So if I go ahead and make this 15 pixels, it should make it half as round, which it does. Now, I don't like the way that looks because the text is kind of overlapping the text box. And so to fix that, we are going to hit the next section of our CSS lesson. So if you'd like to follow along, go ahead and press Control-Shift-I. What that does is that goes ahead and opens the inspect element on browsers like Google Chrome. I am using Google Chrome, right? Yeah. There it is. Okay, so right here we have pretty much a little visual of what I'm about to show you guys next. So think of the border like this, right? Now if we go ahead and find the border here, we have a place right here that says border, right? And then inside of the border we have a little bit of space called padding, and then inside of padding we have our actual materials. Then outside of our border we have more space called margin. So in CSS we use the padding and margin, and we can set this ourselves. So in order to put more space inside of the borders, that way we will have more space between the word and the actual border. As shown here, we have to use padding because padding is the space inside of the border and margin is the space outside of the border. So this right here is showing how the body is working right now. So if you look here, actually this isn't the body, this is the div. No, this is the body that's selected right now. If I go ahead and select the div, it's going to change stuff. So right now I don't have a border on my div, I don't have a margin, and I don't have a padding. All I have is the material. So remember how I made a div around the click me, around the button and the two text boxes? This is the material inside of that div right now. And then outside of that material we have padding. Well, we actually don't, but we can go ahead and put in some. And then we have the border, which is not visible because divs don't have borders unless you put them in yourself. And then outside of the border we have margin, which is space outside the border. So inside of the .textbox class, I'm gonna go ahead and type padding, colon, and then go ahead and put in 15 pixels, just like the border radius. Now if I go ahead and refresh, that should add some space inside of our text box border. But that looks a bit too big because if I type, look at how small the dots are compared to how big the text box is. To fix that, I'm going to go ahead and show you the next part of your lesson, which is fonts. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys font size, which is pretty easy, that's all it is. But instead of how Microsoft Word and Google Docs works, where you choose a font size between numbers such as 12 or 14, if we have to write that in pixels. If we were to go ahead and write in 14 pixels, save and refresh, that would make our text even smaller, wouldn't it? Okay, no, that'd make it bigger because the default is actually 12. But 12 pixels. Now if you go to okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and type in high right here. So that's 14 pixels for you. If I go ahead and find or open a Microsoft Word document, go to 14 or go to font size 14 and then type in high, it will be bigger because that's measured in another way, whereas these are measured in pixels. So I'm gonna go ahead and make these 20 pixels large. Okay, so the sign-in things just got a little bigger. I'm gonna go ahead and make it 10 pixels of padding because it's too big for me. So this is mostly where opinion comes in, where in most videos I will have one opinion and you guys will have another opinion. When it comes to, yeah, press Control S, dang it. When it comes to actually styling the document. So now that I have font size, this is just a regular font right here. I can go ahead and change that up. I have many options actually. I can go ahead and just type in font-family. Nope. And then in Visual Studios, it will give you a list of fonts that you can use. Most of these do not work in all browsers. Luckily, this one should work in Chrome. And it did. Barely, but it did. Let me go ahead and find another one. This should look better. Perfect. Yeah, that looks better. But you can also do it the easier way, which is this font-family. And then in between these two single quotes, you can go ahead and write your font. So now, Visual Studios likes to go ahead and get rid of that sometimes, but usually they are used. So now if you go ahead and press that and refresh, type in hi, now we have the font elephant. Now that looks too bold for me, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now we also have another option where we can go to w3schools.com, and then they have a list of Google fonts that we can use. The way we're going to use those is back into our index.html, right here where it says link href main.css rel style sheet. Right underneath that, you're going to go ahead and create another link, and then href is going to be fonts.google.com/font, and then you have the font name, which is, let's see, they have something that starts with ARA, I'm pretty sure, and then rel style sheet, and then you're gonna go ahead and type in the two style tags, and then change the font family right here, font family, and then go ahead and type it in right inside of these two quotation marks. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys that right now. So in order to get there, we're gonna go to w3schools.com, w3schools.com, when it loads, there it is. And now this is pretty much my favorite website on where to learn web development. You guys should come here too. Okay, so it's going to be under CSS. And then CSS how to. No, CSS fonts. It should say CSS fonts. Perfect. So like right here, it teaches you sans serif, serif, and serif, red serifs. Okay, so you have these types of font family stuff, right? So this right here teaches you all about font sizes, how you can use percentages and EMs, and then change it all up. Okay, I guess it's in the how-to. Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna search right now. Right here, CSS Google font. Okay, if you search that, and then how to Google fonts, there it is. So right here, right here on w3schools.com, they have 848 apparently Google fonts that you can choose from. And they have images of they have text right here of what it will look like on the certain browser that you're using. So on Google Chrome, since these are Google fonts, I'm pretty sure Google Chrome supports every single one of these. So let's see. Ooh, this looks like a beautiful font. So then you're gonna go ahead and click on try it, and then they're going to have this. So you can pretty much just copy and paste this whole thing right here. So you have the link hreffonts.googleapis.com/css ? And then acronym rel style sheet, and then font family acronym, and then you can go ahead and choose your font size. That does the same thing. I just have to make it prettier. There. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and use my first font that I have from Visual Studios. And then this button still looks abnormal. To change that, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and add a class to it and call it submit. Go ahead and save. Then it doesn't matter, again, it doesn't matter where you put anything, or where you put where you put all the classes and IDs and element names. What matters is what order everything comes in sometimes. Like, it doesn't matter if any of these come in any different order, because all of these are different commands and they will be executed at one point. But if I have two of the same command, then it does matter in which order it comes. So again, I'm going to make the background color of the button RGB. Perfect. So now the text is still black, so we can go back up to .textbox, enter down one more, and then go ahead and choose the color that you would like. I'm going to go ahead and use light or highlight. I wonder if that will work. Perfect. So I have a different color here in my text boxes. And then I changed the background color of the button to this, and that just looks even uglier. So now we need to go ahead and fix the border. So to do this, I can either get rid of the border, which would be easier than, see? It'd be easier to get rid of the border and then go ahead and just add some padding, like 5 pixels of padding. And then just go ahead and change the border radius to 15 pixels as well. Perfect. So now we have a little button. Now you've been clicking this, or I've been clicking the button the whole time, but you guys can't see it. So now, see how when you hover over the text box, how the cursor changes into this letter I? And you know how when you go ahead and like hover over some buttons? Okay, apparently not. Let's see, if I go to google.com, right, and then I hover over this text box of Katie Jurado, you see how the cursor turns into a pointer, and how when I hover over the microphone it also turns into a pointer. And then here when I hover over my button, it does not turn into a pointer. The reason is we need to write this ourselves, that when you hover over this whole class, it needs to turn into a pointer. So again, on a separate thing, we need to go ahead and call the class again. Then we're going to do colon, and then we are going to write hover. Then do a space and a curly bracket, and then right here you can write whatever code you want it to do, only when it hovers. So first I want the cursor to be pointer. So what that does is, so see right now how it doesn't do anything when you hover over the button. If I go ahead and refresh, hover over the button, now it will change into a pointer. So now, to show you guys that this works, I'm gonna go ahead and change the background color to red every time that you hover over the button. So every time you hover over the button, the background color turns red. Then when I go ahead and get out of the button, it goes ahead and turns back blue. And you can do this not with buttons, but you can do this with everything. Every single class and or ID. So if I were to go ahead and change this to body hover, then if I change it to body hover, okay, here, actually let me go ahead and do that. So, right, and then right here, right, body hover, and then refresh. So now I'm on top of the body. So as soon as I get my mouse off the body, see? Ooh, that actually looks pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna get a seizure. So I'm gonna go ahead and change this back to .submit. So that necessarily works with everything. And you also have another thing that is when a text box is active. What active means is when it's clicked on, and so right now this text box is active. Like I can type in it right now because of the text box being active. When I click on this text box is now active. When I click on this button, that fraction of a second where I click on it, that's when it's active. And to change the code when it's active, we're gonna go ahead and use the button, and then we're going to do active. Instead of the text hover, it should say active. And then here, I'm gonna go ahead and change the background color to pink. No, hot pink. So now what happens is I hover over it, it turns red. When I click on it, it turns pink for that fraction of a second. You guys see it turning pink? Or when I go ahead and click and hold, it stays pink. That way when I let go, it's blue. So I can also do that here where, let's see, I want .textbox right here, right? If I go ahead and do .textbox active, then what I can do is I can go ahead and change the color of the text box. I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the border by doing border color. And I'm going to just make it red. Or how about pale violet red? That looks like a cool color. Now if I go ahead and refresh, when I hover over the button, it goes red because of this code right here. Huh, that's weird. I didn't put any of that code in. Okay, then when I go ahead and click on it and make it active, for that second where it is actually being clicked on, that's when it's active, the border turns this pink color. Same here. So what active means is when something is being clicked on. As soon as you stop clicking on it, it goes away. So right now, this is focus. So right now, it's being focused on. But when it's active, it does that. And let's see, if I go ahead and change this from active to focus, then what it will do is it will keep it pink. And then as soon as I let go, it'll turn back blue. And then type here, hi, and then there you go. So that is your guys' tutorial on CSS as of now. So that's until next time. Goodbye. And please, if you guys liked this video and you'd like to see more, please like and subscribe. And if you guys had any questions or any suggestions on how I can improve this video, please write it in the comments below. Thank you.